My name is Tyler Moy. I just recently wrote a 9-page research paper for my English 1102 class, and one of the assignments with this, I had to do a TED Talk. So this is my first TED Talk. Bear with me. So here we go. My topic covered women's issues in the United States and China. I wanted to compare the two countries and see how different and similar women were being treated in both. While I was doing my research on this paper, I realized that they were kind of more similar than different, because it's very interesting how they were, and I'm going to get into that later on into the video. So let's jump into how women were treated into the United States. So everyone knows in their history classes, or you should have learned in your history classes, I should say, how women were treated back in the day, in the early 19th century, the 18th century, 17th, on and so forth. Women were not allowed to get an education. They were not allowed to vote. The only thing women were allowed to do were bear the pain of childbirth, take care of the kids, cook, clean, and give their attention to their husband. That's the only thing they were allowed to do. Basically, women were there to be a housewife. Now, while the man, the husband, the dad, he's out there getting an education. He's out there getting a job, providing for the family with income. And the woman is there just checking on the kids, cooking dinner, cooking breakfast, cooking lunch, or whatever. She's not allowed to do anything that the man does, which is very odd. But that's just how it was back in those days. It's not like in today's time where women can get education, women can vote, women can do whatever a man can do. That's just how it is. So on May 21st, 1919, with the help of Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton, women finally received the right to vote in 1919. This year, 2019, makes it 100 years since women got that right to vote. Now, if you think about it, 100 years really isn't that long ago. It really wasn't. But we've made some progress, but there's still more that could be made even now in today's time. There still could be more, but hey, we're working on it. So even in today's time, women are still being treated unequal to men. For example, job-wise, when you think of a job, say you think of an engineer, what's the first thing that pops in your head? A man. A man. That's just how it is. When you think of a doctor, what's the first thing that pops in your head? A man. Electrician, a man. In the army, a man. But guess what? There are female engineers, there are female doctors, there's females in the army, there's females that can do the same job as men do, but they're still being treated unequal. Sometimes jobs don't want to give women that particular job because they think it's going to be too much, or she can't handle it like a man could. But why? There's no explanation of why you can't give a woman a job that a man can do, because they can do the same thing. We're all equal. We're all equal. Also, society has also really made a huge impact on how women are supposed to be treated and equal through social media and movies and TV shows and all types of stuff that's out there now. For example, go to your social media page, go to Instagram, and go through your timeline, and thing. You see an Instagram model, or you see your favorite celebrity or whatever. You don't look like them. They may have a flat stomach. They may even have abs. Who knows? They might have big breasts. They might just have the hourglass figure that someone doesn't have. Not everybody looks that way. I don't look that way. I wish sometimes, but I don't. If everybody was the same, the world would be very, very just boring. Because there's nothing new. Everybody's the same. Not everybody looks like that. So it's important for women and everybody, but just for this video, for women, young girls, to embrace themselves. Feel beautiful about yourself. Yeah, maybe you're not this height. Maybe you're not this size. Just embrace yourself. But it's harder for women and young girls in this upcoming generation because they feel like they have to look a certain way in order to get attention that they need, that they think they need, to get attention that they want, to make them feel beautiful. They won't embrace their own selves. They feel like they have to look a certain way. Even some women in today's time are getting plastic surgery because they want to have a flat stomach, they want to have a bigger butt, they want to have whatever done. Some do it for their enjoyment, but 9 times out of 10 is because they're insecure about something, which they shouldn't be. You should just embrace yourself, love yourself. Okay, so enough about the United States. Let's talk about how women were treated in China. Now in China, women are being looked down upon as well. You remember how I said earlier that in the United States, women were not allowed to get an education? Guess what? The same thing happened in China. Women were not allowed to get an education then. And it was for a long period of time too, just as was in the United States. There's actually a book called The Articles and Words Explanations, and it states that the word woman means submissive. So in China, they implanted into their head, the women in China had it implanted in their head that they were submissive and that their significant other or partner was the dominant. They were being dependent instead of being independent. But why? You don't need to depend on anyone. The only person you should be dependent on is yourself. And that word independent means depending on yourself and not depending on others. Depend on yourself. Because you're the only person that could do whatever you wanted to do. You're the only person that could do that. There's also something I found really interesting while I was doing my research, that when women were pregnant in China, because you remember they used to have that one-child policy. They don't have it anymore. They got rid of it in 2015, in fact. When the woman actually became pregnant and they found out that the gender was a girl, they would try to talk the woman into getting an abortion because the government in the whole country of China just preferred boys over girls. Why? I don't know. I've looked for plenty of answers and I cannot find a definite answer why they did that. So it's just very weird of why that happened, but it is what it is. So and then in my head I was thinking, without women, men could not be created. Did you think about that? How are you going to have more men if you don't have enough women to help create the men? The boys' population is slowly growing and the women's population is going down. So I think that the government of China didn't, or whoever was over that particular thing, they didn't really fully understand didn't fully process thoroughly how they should have, and think, oh wow, how are we going to create more men if we don't have that many women? You tell me. Another thing interesting that I found in the research was arranged marriage in China. So sometimes women in China were in arranged marriages and they could not decline that because it would bring shame to their family, bring disgrace to their name, and they'll basically be exiled from their own community. So it's very interesting because women don't even have the right to their own freedom of speech, to their own bodies, to anything. They're being submissive. They're not being independent. They're being dependent. They're depending on someone else and not depending on themselves because they don't know how, and they're probably used to depending on others, so they wouldn't depend on themselves. Another issue that branches off in both countries was domestic violence. Women in both countries face domestic violence every day, and women are afraid to speak out that they are being abused by their significant other or partner. The abuse doesn't have to be physical; it can also be mental and verbally. Abuse is abuse, no matter in what shape or form or whatever. Abuse is abuse. Abuse can break down a person piece by piece and make them feel vulnerable and feel like they have to be dependent on that person that is doing the abuse. They don't feel like they could do what they have to do, and that's hard for women because we already have a tough time trying to be like men, because in both countries women have to work 10 times as harder to achieve the same attention as a man. They have to receive the same attention as a man, but they have to work 10 times harder to get that attention. Something's got to change. I don't know what, but there are many and many women's activists in both countries and all over the world that are trying so hard for women to be equal as men. Because women can do the same thing as men. Men can do the same thing as women. But women are just not looked as the same. They're not on the same bracket. Men are up here, women are down here. So that is my TED Talk. I hope you all enjoyed it. This was my first time, so bear with me. This was for a project, like I stated earlier. So I hope you learned a little bit about my research essay, about my topic and everything. I hope y'all enjoyed it. See you guys soon. Have a good day, y'all.